Okay, tip number 7, giving and receiving feedback. Big, scary topic, right?
Maybe. Yeah.
Maybe.
It depends.
But you know what? The thing about it is, this is really what kind of distinguishes group from group. I mean, when you see that feedback is a good thing and can be positive and can really bring people together and help them with life change, you really see the value of it.
Yeah. I think of it as sort of like the gauge on your car. You know, you're driving down the road of life, and your gauges kind of give you feedback about how things are going. You know, confrontation is a little more like the cop that pulls you over if there's a real problem. But feedback
is something that has to be stopped. You got to really face it.
Right.
This is sort of
it increases our awareness.
Yeah. So let's talk about what it is. Well, it's telling someone else what you feel or think or perceive about them and their own patterns of behavior, things you notice. It can be right here in the moment in the group, or
I want to give you a little
time.
I love the way you're explaining this. I just want to give you a little feedback.
I think the more you do that, the better this group will go. So it's the
really
positive
I
stuff.
experience you as someone who enjoys giving encouragement to people about feedback.
I experienced you as giving him. Okay. Anyway, you can see where we're going with this, is that it can be positive and negative. Now, sometimes you might notice inconsistencies in a person, and you might be aware of these and they're not aware. Like somebody starts talking about their kid and you see that they're angry, but they don't know they're angry, and you say, can I give you some feedback? I don't know where this is going, but it seems like you're mad when you talk about your kid, or things that don't make sense to you. So be aware that feedback can be what you notice, and it can be a positive thing, or it can be something that you need to bring up that's negative.
Well, I want to give you a little feedback. You know, I notice all your hobbies, like you like to build fires, and you're really into guns,
nuclear
and
warheads.
you blow up things. You might want to look at that. Maybe a little anger there somewhere.
So what's the Bible say about all this?
The Bible says a lot about this. Let me read you a few verses. Proverbs 27:5 says, "Better is open rebuke than hidden love." You know, sometimes it's hard to kind of say this stuff, but it's really loving to do it.
So sometimes that feedback says, "Hey, pay attention to this because we really want to help you."
Yeah. Ecclesiastes 7:5 says it's better to heed a wise man's rebuke than to listen to the song of fools. So that's the other side of it, about how we receive feedback. And then I love this one in Colossians 3:16. It says, "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly as you teach and admonish one another with all wisdom, and as you sing psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs with gratitude in your hearts to God." So basically, an admonishment, we need to do this in order to grow. But if you could sing to me, when you do
I'll sing a spiritual song.
Yeah,
well, that Song of Fools you might want to think about.
This is important in a group because it helps us, first of all, see one another more clearly, especially ourselves. Feedback acts as a mirror that we're looking into and says, this is a snapshot of the reality that is me that I can't see because I have a blind spot. And
you know, a lot of people are aware of this in their work, I bet, because if you work in some sort of business, you probably give your customers feedback forms because you just want to know what their experience of being on the other side of you is like, or what they see about your work.
It comes in various levels. I've gotten feedback that in certain circumstances I'm not listening well and I need to engage better, and then others have given me feedback about a pattern I have that tends to just move people forward, and I didn't even know I was actually encouraging them, but they were saying, you just tend to do that. So is this, well,
positive or negative?
Yeah, exactly.
And it was awareness.
Actually. So how do we help these guys?
Practicals, how-tos. Let's first start with our group and see how they do it, and then we'll break that down for you.
So, to build our houses on the rock, Jesus is talking about our actions, our attitudes, everything, right?
My parents were disciplined people, and they did well. They taught us that rules are there for a reason. When you say you're going to be done in an hour, you're done. I'm fine in the middle of the meeting, but in the beginning and the end, you start on time, end on time. I can be hyper about it, though. I mean, I don't really mean to be, though.
Okay, then. If nobody's got anything else, then we should probably...
well, hey, wait. Well, hold on a second. Leisha. Did you want to say something after Kevin's last comment?
Actually, yeah, I did.
Oh.
Kevin, you're a fantastic leader. You are. We all think so.
Yes.
And
here it comes.
Sometimes when we come to the ends of the meetings, people tend to get ignored. Is that fair?
Yeah, a little. Yeah.
Now, time is important to you, and that's great. But sometimes it makes for an awkward ending. And I know that's not what you want.
You've noticed this more than once.
Yes. If I don't have enough fingers on my hand.
Wow, this is embarrassing. I guess I owe you an apology. I'm Sorry. I certainly don't want anybody to leave here feeling ignored. Is that how you felt?
Yeah, a little. I did.
I can't get away with anything, can
You certainly can't.
I?
He's the man.
Not with you around.
No.
Thank you for letting me.
Hey, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Well, no, come on. How do we deal with this?
No, I think you could just say we're getting close to time.
Or even maybe we need to make this the last comment. I'm good with that.
I like that.
Anybody else?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
here's
good.
another thing. Maybe I can check in with everybody, and if everybody's okay with going an extra 5 minutes.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, we'll have to call the babysitter, but yeah.
Okay, and if we have to go longer than that, then I'll just increase my blood pressure. We'd like to hear what you were going to say. And let's make this the last comment. That was really
I'm all about having the
beautiful.
last,
Study.
the last word. This is all I was going to say. I think what Jesus meant, maybe what he meant also was
Yeah,
that
I could have just said, "Hey, pal, why don't you stop ignoring people?" But I
People
didn't
have to
do
get
that.
home. They got babysitters.
Because
they
I
got TV
respect
shows
you.
to watch.
Leisha was very sad.
Come on, she was not sad.
Feeling completely ignored.
She was ignore him.
And you
actually.
were
He's not usually
just
this tacky.
stony faced. The next time you do that, I'm going to call the small group police.
There is no small
and
group
they won't
police.
be so nice.
But if there were, I
They
would be the
have
chief
these-
of police
they
and I would
have
arrest
these
him
spiky handcuffs that
because
they
of
put
all
on-
this
that they put
nonsense.
on.
You
That was
notice?
helpful.
Yeah, well, he got put on the spot a little bit. I like the way he looked around the room, kind of went like, okay.
He said, anybody else notice this? Well, I don't have enough fingers to count it.
It's like this is an ongoing pattern, and it's not this big, huge, deal-breaking thing, but it's kind of a, you know what? It's the pattern is starting to get to us a little bit. We want to mirror something back to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's break it down a little bit. So you're going to tell them what you've seen or felt
Yeah.
or perceived. You're going to observe it with them and just say, here's some examples of it. I want to affirm some things. I want to tell you that we care about you. We're on your team. Then tell you why. This is important. Here's why we think this is a big deal. Because it affects things. Like in Kevin's situation, it affects how we feel about group. And, is Leisha getting left out and that sort of thing.
That is important, that second part, John, that you mentioned, because it's one thing to say, I see that you do this. This is a habit. And somebody go, oh, yeah, someone's told me that before. But that, again, that other side of, and I think here's the impact it's having.
Right.
Here, that, boy, if you understood that, that'll help.
And the I see, I feel, as opposed to the you. People are really a lot more open to hearing feedback when it's an I statement instead of a you statement. And then give them your thoughts and your opinions.
And speaking of being open, there are some things we all need to be aware of how to receive feedback.
So I think that's hard for folks.
Yeah, it is. Because,
be on the receiving end.
Especially depending on what your experience in life has been with being criticized or
Right.
have negative things
Get
said to you.
defensive or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
Some of us have a hard time receiving the positive.
That's right, which is actually one of the things that, why don't we start with that one? Some people, when you get a positive comment, it's like, no, it wasn't me, it was the Lord, or, some sort of way of kind of getting it away from
self-effacing kind of, right.
God wants you to have an accurate picture of yourself. So just say, wow, I didn't know that, thank you. And then take it in and let it become part of you. But another one is, from the beginning, sit with it. You don't have to do anything immediately, just receive it and ponder it and let it be there before you do something with it. The next one is, have an attitude that it's there to help you and not against you. Remember, we talked about grace as one of the guiding principles in all of our group experience. Grace means that your group is for you, and we need to hear these things that way. If you need to have a clarifying question, so when did you notice that I did this? Yeah. They got very specific in the video. I think
that was
about
helpful.
It. Yeah. Acknowledge that you're appreciative. There's a thank you for this gift.
Don't grit your teeth when you say thank you too.
Thank you.
It doesn't work.
Yeah. No, but I think that's the gift idea, that you to start to see this as you are helping me grow spiritually, and that's a good thing. That's why we need the body.
You're probably not giving that feedback because you enjoy this.
Right.
You're doing it for their benefit.
Right. And if you do feel defensive, learn to notice that. Research actually shows that men's brains immediately, anything negative, our brains kick into kind of a fight or flight
It's
mode.
a warrior. It's a pushback.
Yeah, it is a pushback. So learn that, sit back with it, observe it, and don't get defensive. The next one is express your emotions appropriately. Try to avoid the anger and all the amped up stuff. And, don't fake it. If you got to say, this is hard to hear, be genuine about it and just kind of like use this, take it.
Now that you've seen a group process this and heard some of the guidelines for working through this together, either now as you go on with your meeting or in a future meeting, when you see an opportunity to give someone else in the group feedback, or if you're on the other end receiving some feedback, take that, try to process that well, and see how that goes. And at the end of that time, maybe again after this meeting or whenever you do that, see how that went as a group. Was the atmosphere good for that? How was it given? How was it received? And how can we continue to
I feel and
have a safe
perceive
place?
that Bill does this so well.
You really do a good job.
Can you receive that, Bill?
You really
this is
do.
amazing, and it's such a gift has been given to me.
Yeah.
And we want to have the gift given to you. Have a great meeting.